Public education will come to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Representative Huberty.
Here.
Brown. Here. Allen. Allison. Ashby. Here. Bell. Here. Dutton. Gonzalez. King. Here. Meyer. Sanford. Talarico. Here. Van Diemen. Here.
All right, board is present. Thank you. Today we're going to consider bills on a variety of subjects. Before we get started, here's some reminders for our witnesses. Before you testify, please register at one of the witness registration kiosks located in the hallway. If you need help, please ask committee staff and they will assist you. The electronic witness affirmation form must be filled out completely and accurately, including your contact information, position on each bill for which you've registered. If your oral testimony does not match the position you've indicated for a particular bill, you will be asked to confirm your position during your testimony. We'll edit your registration as needed. You may also use the witness registration system to register your position on a bill without actually testifying before the committee, which we appreciate. In this situation, you should indicate you do not wish to testify after you've indicated your position on a bill. If you brought in written testimony, you still must register. You also must provide 15 copies of materials to committee staff prior to testifying on the bill. The materials must be clearly marked with the appropriate bill number. A committee staff will distribute the materials when that bill is up for consideration. When you're called to testify, you will have 2 minutes to address the committee. If you submit written testimony, please do not read it to us. We want to hear what you have to say, not what you're reading. While you're waiting to testify, please summarize your comments so they can be delivered within this time frame. The timer light here in front of you will be green when you begin. The light turns yellow when you have 1 minute remaining, and the light turns red. Please show courtesy for the people behind you and promptly conclude your testimony. We will stop you. Members, are there any questions or comments before we begin our agenda this morning? Let me make a couple quick comments. We will recess for, obviously, session today, where there are bills on the floor, so we'll come back as soon as we get done. We'll ask for permission during reading and referral. And then we obviously have some bills to vote out today. We'll be laying out the committee sub for House Bill 3, and the intent is this afternoon to vote that out, along with several other bills that are currently pending that we have we have provided to you. So with that, get Mondo still doesn't have any witnesses?
Sure, it's fine.
1639, okay. Let me see if he's got a sub. All right, the chair lays out House Bill 1639, recognizes Representative Martinez to explain the measure.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. House Bill 1639 is a bill which addresses issues that certain school districts face due to their school board's terms, local municipal elections, and how these two conflict with the Education Code. This bill was brought to me by a local school district in the Valley, and under the bill, the school boards would be allowed to do two things by December 31st, 2024. That would be adjust the terms of its trustees and adjust its election date to November, which is a uniform election date. There are a few districts who need to utilize the provisions of the bill. However, these districts would violate the statute if House Bill 1639 were not implemented. Under the current Texas Education Code, trustees who serve 3-year terms must hold annual elections, and joint elections must be held for the school districts and municipalities. So certain districts which operate under the 3-year terms are elected in May, not annually, and utilize a 4-3 elections approach and are in violation of Texas Education Code Section 11.059. This requires the trustees of the school districts who serve 3-year terms to hold their elections annually. So these districts have attempted to shift to annual elections to satisfy the requirements. However, the municipal elections in these districts are not held annually. So that would cause them to violate the joint elections requirement of the Education Code on Section 11.0581. Because of these instances, the districts are between a rock and a hard place, and they cannot meet the statute because it would then cause them to violate the other. So to address this issue, House Bill 1639 allows our boards to adjust their terms of their members as well as the election dates in order to comply with Education Code Sections 11.059 and .0581. And I will reserve my right to close and answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
You're a witness, and I think we'll bring them up and talk to them unless we have any questions for you. So we'll give you the right to close. Thank you. Tony Torres, San Benito Consolidated Independent School District, testifying for the bill.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tony Torres, and I represent the San Benito Consolidated Independent School District. I serve as general counsel for the school district. The school district is located in the Rio Grande Valley, specifically Cameron County. I appreciate and thank Representative Martinez for filing and supporting this bill. The district's in favor of this bill because, as Representative Martinez stated, we have a conflict between the two statutes. Currently, we've been in communication with the Secretary of State's office. They informed us that we need a transition plan. I let them know that we were going to be working with Representative Martinez, and he was going to be filing this bill. We currently do have a conflict. Our trustees serve 3-year terms. We do not have annual elections, but we are in compliance with the joint election requirement, thus the conflict. So we need this legislation to alleviate the conflict.
Questions? So there was an opportunity to change this several years ago, and
We missed the deadline.
You missed the deadline.
I
so
believe it was December of 2016.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have something similar that we talked about this past week. I know Representative Ortega had something that she brought up to us, so let's see, maybe we can get her to put her stuff in yours or something like that as we go forward. So, all right, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Anybody else wish to testify on for or against House Bill 1639? If not, we'll recognize Representative Martinez to close on his bill.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we did contact Representative Ortega's office as well, and we'll be working with him to see how we can alleviate this issue. And with that, if there's not any questions,
Yeah, I think
close.
they're two separate issues.
Yes,
but,
sir.
We don't need to do it. So, but this makes sense. So, got it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, and I
All right,
close.
all right, thank you. At this time, House Bill 1639 will be left pending. Sure, we're going to go to Charlie. Let's do the HJR first. You want to do the enabling first? Yeah. Okay, the chair lays out House Joint Resolution 24 and recognizes Chairman Guerin to explain his measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. HJR 24 it's a pretty simple constitutional amendment. It proposes a constitutional amendment subject to voter approval requiring the state to contribute at least 50% of the cost of M&O for public school system without using any local property taxes. Members, like many of you, the most common complaints I receive from my constituents revolve around two things: property taxes and school finance. This addresses both. Unfortunately, recent history has shown the downward trend in terms of public education funding at the state level, whereas just a decade ago, the state funded about 45% of the bill, and when I first was elected, it was over 50%. The state now only funds about 36%, 36 to 38%. The burden of funding public education has drastically shifted from the state to local property owners, and that's the source of our skyrocketing property tax bills. This legislation would provide significant and much-needed property tax relief to Texas citizens, while at the same time ensuring more adequate funding at the state level for education of our future generations. And Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to stand for questions, and I'd like to reserve the right to close.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Members, are there questions for Chairman Guerin? I don't think you have to get up because there's nobody registered at this point.
There's not, that's all.
So Chairman, the fiscal donut is looking at it looks like it's about for us to make up that cost about $10 billion.
Yeah, about $10 billion, that's correct, sir.
Okay. And I know you have some enabling legislation that's coming with it, and you're going to lay that one out after this one, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if anybody wants to talk about your bill. Is there anybody wishing to testify on, for, or against HJR 24? All right. At this time, public testimony will be closed, and we'll call on Chairman Guerin to close on his bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to close.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. At this time, HJR 24 will be left pending. Okay. The chair now lays out House Bill 462 and recognizes Chairman Guerin to explain this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 462 is the enabling legislation for HJR 24, and yes, it does have about a $10 billion fiscal note. I just think it's the responsibility of the state to pick up more of the funding and take the load off of my constituents and your constituents. And same thing, I would stand for questions. I'd like to reserve the right to close.
Members, are there any questions for the chairman? So, just out of curiosity, so there's other stuff that's out there. I don't want to mess up any of your bills by naming other bills, but there's other stuff that provides an opportunity to get the money, right? So
Yes.
you're just saying to the voters, should the state pay 50%?
That's all it says. The voters can decide, should the state pay at least a minimum of 50% or not.
Right.
And if
And
the
then if
voters
they
say, then we're gonna have to figure out how to do it. And
That's
I realize that, tax increases, are tough and cuts are tough. But I do believe it's the responsibility of the state to pay for public education. I think the Constitution actually requires it, and the state has shifted that burden to the local taxpayers.
That's right. You're right. Absolutely. Okay. I don't think you got to move again. Any questions for the chairman? All right. Well, go ahead, Mr. Ashby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Gary, I'm sorry, I was just sitting there thinking about that, the fiscal note. So,
I have too.
so the election would be in November.
That's correct.
And so the $10 billion, would that be for one fiscal year in 2021? In other words, is it a $10 billion biennial fiscal note, or is that for 1 year?
$10 billion biennial fiscal note.
Okay. And so this would take effect for school year 20.
We would already be in the budget for
2021.
this biennium, and so it would have to take place in the next biennium.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll take public testimony. Is there anybody wish to testify on, for, or against House Bill 462? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. We'll call on Chairman Guerin to close on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I close. Members, thank you for
Thank
your
you,
time.
Mr. Chairman. At this time, House Bill 462 will be left pending. Let's bring up White. Chair lays out House Bill 2116 and recognizes Chairman White to explain this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members, thank you for the opportunity to lay out this particular piece of legislation. As it stands today, the Education Code provides guidelines for schools to identify and provide services for students who are at risk of dropping out of school. There are 13 identifiers that a school district can use to determine if a child is at risk of dropping out, but there is currently no guideline that helps us identify students who have come in contact with the criminal justice system as potential dropout risk. House Bill 2116 addresses this issue and effectively adds a 14th identifier by classifying students who have been incarcerated or who have a parent who has been or is currently incarcerated as at risk of dropping out for purposes of certain accelerated instruction and alternative education programs. This legislation will ensure that schools provide the right services and preventative measures to ensure that students who come in contact with the criminal justice system not necessarily follow their own if their parents or the ones incarcerated do not drop out of school prematurely. We must ensure that these students do not fall through the cracks or become further involved in our justice system. These young children need the right tools to succeed and build a strong educational foundation to ensure academic achievement and a prosperous adult life. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? For him? Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Any questions? All right, we'll give you the right to close. You do have some witnesses. Angela Thomas, PACE Youth Programs, Inc., and self-testifying for the bill.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning, Chairman, and all those assembled. My name is Dr. Angela Thomas, and I am speaking in support of House Bill 2116. When considering children of incarcerated parents, an increased number of kindergarten through high school students in America have parents that are currently incarcerated or have been previously incarcerated. Parental incarceration is correlated to the disproportion of African American and Caucasian achievement gaps at 9 years of age. 7% of American minors are currently experiencing a parent incarcerated, on parole, or a probated sentence. These children are likely to suffer multi-generational households, high unemployment, and low socioeconomic status. The parents are often uneducated, possess lower cognitive skills, and are often unmarried. Boys and girls tend to experience parental incarceration at approximately equal rates. House Bill 2116 will identify these students at an early age and provide the necessary support to ensure positive academic and social outcomes. These children are more likely to have parents that are addicted to drugs and alcohol. These addictions will subsequently lead to criminal activity. Children of incarcerated parents are more likely to engage in illegal and addictive cycles than children that have not experienced parental incarceration. House Bill 2116 will provide vital support to children of incarcerated parents that will promote overall well-being. These children, American children, are exposed to an array of vulnerable circumstances that will probably create at-risk conditions. Two of the most fragile demographics are children of incarcerated parents and children that are in foster care. House Bill 2116 seeks to highlight school and community-based programs to mitigate the challenges unique to this demographic. The public education information systems will provide the necessary data for decision makers to develop and implement intervention programs to meet specific needs of these children identified by House Bill 2116. So in conclusion, the Texas Education Agency has determined 13 variables to define at-risk students. These indicators include students that are on parole, probation, or have been detained in detention centers. These variables point to the likely root of these issues.
Dr. Thomas, you went over by about a minute already, so can you wrap up, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I am in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, are there questions? All right. Thank you, Dr.
And thank you for your
You
time.
betcha. Absolutely. Lavetta Levels, testifying for yourself, testifying for the bill.
Good morning to the chair and the distinguished members of this committee. I am here on support of House Bill 2116. As Dr. Thomas has already shared with you the data that supports this proposal by a Representative White. I come to you as a 30-year public school educator.
Can you just give us your name, please?
I'm sorry, Lavetta Levels. I'm sorry, I thought I stated that. Again, Lavetta Levels, 30-year public school educator. I'm here in support of House Bill 2116. Dr. Thomas has provided you all the data around the numbers, around the specifics of the numbers of students that are affected by those that are incarcerated. We deal with that on a daily basis. One of the most significant pieces that you should consider around this House bill is providing support of those students. We know that when students graduate from high school, that they are more likely to be more successful and more viable citizens in our communities. We are asking that you please consider this 14 characteristics. We are looking on a daily basis at those students. Every single day, we're providing those interventions, academic interventions, those social behavior interventions. We know that these students, from them being involved in the prison system, those parents being involved in the prison systems, that it does require more from the school districts. The school districts would like to be more involved with the social agencies. We are bringing in counselors. We would like to provide those services and their support systems in the classrooms, being from the academic supports as well as social and behavior. We know that our students are very much in need of these services, and we know that by providing this 14th characteristic, that it can provide our students on the pathway to academic success for graduation.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, are there any questions? All right, thank you very much. Reginald Smith, Policy Analyst, Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, testifying for the bill.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Reginald Smith. I'm a policy analyst at Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, and I'm testifying in support of HB 2116. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are stressful or traumatic events. They may also include household dysfunction, such as witnessing domestic violence or growing up with family members who have substance use disorders or justice involvement. ACEs are strongly related to the developmental and prevalence of a wide range of health problems throughout the person's lifespan, including those associated with substance misuse. Incarceration of a household member has been associated with adverse outcomes for child well-being. The incarceration of a household member affects children's welfare in many ways, including reduced economic resources, traumatic removal of the family member, and stigmatization. Studies have also found that childhood exposure to household incarceration is associated with an increase in heart disease and depressive disorders. And among young adults, childhood exposure to incarceration has been associated with more marijuana and illegal drug use compared with youth without this exposure. It is well established that incarceration strains on households appear to have enduring associations with health into the adulthood. However, by identifying a familial incarceration as soon as possible, this can be mitigated. The addition of this 14th indicator will allow school personnel to better access students' needs and connect students and their families to appropriate services, reducing potential harm to the student's health outcome and their life course. Please support HB 2116. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, questions for Mr. Smith? Yes. Mr. Tellerico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was curious if we had any data about the numbers of students that this would impact across the state.
Yes, I don't have those numbers with me, but I can certainly provide them to your office.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate it. All right, is there anybody else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2116? If not, public testimony is now closed. We'll call on Chairman White to close on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Tallarico, I believe 146,000 incarcerated folks in our 104 prisons, and according to TDCJ, they've been led to believe, because of what the information we get at intake, it's about 227,000 youth that have parents incarcerated in our Texas prisons, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for this layout. Hope for the positive and favorable consideration of the committee, and with that, I'll close, sir.
Thank you. At this time, House Bill 2116 will be left pending. What's Miller's bill? 119? That's 119. Is that right? Chair lays out House Bill 119, offers committee substitute for the measure. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The chair recognizes Representative Miller to explain his bill.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for this opportunity to lay out this bill on dyslexia screening and testing requirements. Mr. Chairman, you're very familiar with this issue. The substitute is a cleanup bill for House Bill 1886 that we passed last session. That bill had to do with required screening for kindergarten and first graders. 1199 amends the Education Code to require the TEA to develop...
You said 1189. Is it 1199?
I mean, 1199. Thank you, sir.
Are you dyslexic?
I am. Okay. I just want to see if you catch that.
I did catch it.
Okay. Requires the TEA, who we've been working with on this bill, to rule develop procedures designed to allow TEA to, 1, effectively audit and monitor and periodically conduct site visits of all public school districts to ensure that districts are complying with the requirements for screening and treatment for dyslexia and other related disorders. 2, to identify any problems districts experience in complying with screening and treatment. And 3, to develop reasonable and appropriate remedial strategies to address district noncompliance and ensure that screening and treatment are accomplished. The committee substitute for 1199 also amends Section 42.006A1 of the Education Code that requires the commissioner to have each school district and an open enrollment charter school report through the Public Education Information Management System information regarding the number of students enrolled in the district or school who are identified as having dyslexia. It adds related disorders to dyslexia or being at risk for dyslexia or other reading difficulties to the reporting requirements at the request of TEA. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or reserve the right to close. I know we have some witnesses.
Sure. Any questions? Before you leave, talk to me about your fiscal note.
Fiscal note it comes about, the TEA assumes in the fiscal note that it will require 4 people to do this. That's where the fiscal note comes from.
Where's the money, I guess is my question.
Well, that's a good question.
Okay. Do you have it?
No.
Okay. Before we get started, who's TEA's resident expert on this? Is it Monica? Come on up. We'll give you the right to close.
Thank you.
Monica Martinez, Texas Education Agency.
So the fiscal note I'm looking at is about $500,000 a year, roughly. And you're going to need 4 people to implement this. Help me understand. So we're not monitoring today?
Yes, sir. So the current statute in 7.028 explicitly calls out the dyslexia statute as one that the agency is not authorized to monitor. So we have monitoring authority for federal programs. So if to the extent that students with dyslexia fall under IDEA or Section 504, there would be some monitoring authority. But in terms of district compliance with the state dyslexia law, that is something that's not currently allowed.
Yeah, well, that's right. So if we provide the allotment in a different bill for funding, there's not anything taken into consideration related to that?
May I speak to?
So yeah, we're gonna let. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's fine.
So I think the dyslexia allotment, we did identify additional staff related to that.
Okay.
For
Is there
that
enough
purpose.
staff to?
I think that that included 1 additional staff member, so it would get us part of the way there.
Okay. But we're just talking about $11.99 right now, so
That's
I understand. I just want to make sure
Yes,
we're
sir.
clear on that. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Representative Van Deaver.
Just real quick to clarify, I know that Representative Miller, when he laid the bill out, mentioned that charters are also, this applies to charters for the reporting. Is it your understanding that charters are also required to provide screening and the services as well?
I believe that's correct. I will double check that, but I believe that they are also subject to that statute in Chapter 38.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you. There are some witnesses. Vicki Rabwiggins testifying for herself, testifying for the bill. Just a reminder, folks, and I'm going to repeat it one more time, is that you got 2 minutes. If you got written testimony, you read it to us and you go over. We're trying to get through as many bills this morning as we possibly can, so you're going to delay other people that are sitting here trying to testify for other pieces of legislation. So keep that in mind. Be respectful. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Huberty and committee members. My name is Vicki Rabwiggins. I am a Texas public school educator and a licensed dyslexia therapist. I'm also a certified academic language therapist and have a part-time practice in my home teaching dyslexic kiddos. As a teacher and an advocate for dyslexic students for 17 out of my 29 years, I've seen great progress with our Texas dyslexia laws. Thank you so much. We still have a ways to go, but we're far better than we were a long time ago. With the passing of House Bill 1199, I believe the data reported from the required K-1 dyslexia screenings would give legislator and the public data, the public, the data they need to evaluate the screenings being done in our schools. Many schools are not doing this required screening. One teacher in particular told me that she didn't even know what I was talking about when I said, "Aren't your first graders being screened for dyslexia?" And she said, "No, and how do we do that?" And when I told her that they were required to report it, she was clueless. So we need to have some sort of authority from TEA to enforce that these screenings are being done so we don't miss these kiddos that need our help. My goal is to identify these kids with dyslexia early so that they don't have to feel like a reading failure, and so that they don't give up on learning how to read, so that they don't develop a hatred for reading, and most of all, that they don't have a low self-esteem, because I've seen that, and most of my job is to help them overcome that and realize that they do have a successful future, as we can tell with Mr. Chairman Huberty and our speaker, Dennis Monin. It's very possible to be successful with dyslexia. So I am in favor of passing House Bill 1199, and we would be one step closer to achieving my goal with passing this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Any questions? We need more of you out there. That's what we need. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Courtney Hoffman, Texas ALT, testifying for the bill.
Courtney Hoffman, I'm here in favor of House Bill 1199 on behalf of Texas ALTA. That's a statewide association of folks from the Academic Language Therapy Association. It just came to our attention that TEA did not have the authority to actually check on whether the schools were doing this, had no way of knowing how to find out if the school districts are doing this. So we wanted to see if we could make this happen through some kind of reporting, and that's what this bill is all about. Just so we'll know the numbers on the kids in K-1 screening for dyslexia, so that then we can study those just like we have in the past, the PEMS numbers for kids who are identified, and determine are there any barriers that these school districts have in being able to implement this program. And so we just thought this would be a good thing to add, be able to get the information. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. Martha Leal, School Counselor, Texas School Counselors Association, South, testifying for the bill. Martha Leal. Well, we will show Martha registered for the bill but not testifying. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1199? Not, we'll call on Representative. Oh, hold on. Back up. At this time, the chair withdraws the committee substitute for House Bill 1199, and the chair now recognizes Representative Miller to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've heard some really appreciate the witnesses who have come forward, and it's a serious issue, and we're dealing with it, and I know how important it is to you, and so I would ask for your full support, and I would hope the TEA can find the resources to do this. I'll talk to Chairman Zerwas about it too. So,
come see me. We'll talk about it. I got an idea. So,
okay.
We'll figure out a way to try and make this work. Obviously, if we're going to put a bunch of money into the system and we have no way to monitor it, that's problematic. And so I want to talk to TEA about dealing with this relative to the maintenance of effort and some other issues that are associated with some of the weighting and things that we're going to be doing. Okay?
I appreciate that.
Right.
I appreciate the full support of the committee, and that. With that, I close.
All right. At this time, House Bill 1199 will be left pending. Mr. Middleton. Yes, so. So you got two? Okay. Okay, the chair now lays out House Bill 1773 and offers a committee substitute for the measure. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The chair now recognizes Representative Middleton to explain his bill. How many bills have you laid out so far?
This will be my second one.
How'd the first one go?
It went well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to the Public Education Committee.
We'll hope to keep that record going. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Today I lay out the committee substitute for House Bill 1773. And basically what this bill is a classroom facilities prioritization bill. And we know that all over the state that children are being taught in temporary structures, which we call portables. And they're typically manufactured home type buildings. We also know that it's not uncommon for school districts to have standalone administration buildings. And at the end of the day, the core purpose of our schools is the instruction of students in the classroom by teachers, and this bill helps support that core purpose. So basically what this bill does is it says if there's a school district that instructs children on any of their campuses in portables, then while that is occurring, they cannot build standalone administration buildings or add on to standalone administration buildings or actually administration buildings that are connected. It's just basically a prohibition. It says, hey, if kids are in portables and are being taught in portables, then we can't build new admin buildings at the end of the day. So I have a number of examples. One of them is in my district. Dickinson ISD in 2010 built a new admin building, and both before and after that time, children were being taught in portables. And actually, the room that the school board meets in Dickinson ISD is a lot bigger than this one that we're in today. Frisco ISD is another example. They built a 118,000 square foot administration building in 2011. Both before and after that time, they taught children in portables. And what this legislation does is it prioritizes classroom construction over administration building construction, which basically helps put students and teachers first. I think that's what we should be doing. So, Mr. Chairman, members, I yield for questions at this time, and I reserve the right to close.
All right, members, are there any questions? Maybe just one. So, when I'm not sure if you represent a district where this is happening or whatever, but we've had instances of as you grow, schools grow. Obviously you're growing everywhere. You're not just growing in the schools, and it's hard sometimes. You don't know how many kids are going to show up in the classroom, and you got to get bonds and things of that nature. So shouldn't this just be a local decision? I mean, shouldn't the local school boards and the parents that live there be prioritizing what they're doing? I mean, why do we have to get involved as a legislature?
This bill focuses on the core mission of what our public schools should be doing, which is classroom instruction. And I did not have a hard time finding examples. In fact, it was very common all over our state. It's easy to find examples of portables being used for classrooms. I was unable to find a single example of portables being used for central administration offices. So what this bill does is say, hey, look, we need to prioritize classrooms first.
I get that. I'm just asking the question, which is that we all believe local control, limited government until we don't like it. So I'm just curious as to why can't our school districts and our school boards just do it themselves? Why can't they just do this? Why can't they prioritize it themselves? Why do we have to get involved?
Right. I think that's why we have a public education committee here today to focus our school district systems on their core missions and core purposes.
No, it's debatable, but I think part of our mission is create policy that is from that perspective. These are things that, just my perspective as a former board member, is that we're already involved in their lives a lot, and they're trying to get us out of their lives. So,
and it's a moving forward thing. So under the original bill draft, it required a conversion of administration space that really didn't work. So this is a moving forward basis. So looking forward for future construction projects, let's prioritize classroom construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You do have a witness, and so we will give you the right to close unless there's any other questions. All right. We'll give you the right to close. This time, Tara Collum, and I'm sorry if I've messed that up, Executive Director, Teachers for Texas, and self-testifying for the bill. Hello.
Good morning. My name is Tara Collum. I am the Executive Director of the Travis Institute of Educational Policy, and I am the also Teachers for Texas. I have been a classroom teacher for 14 years. During that 14 years, I spent 4 years in a portable classroom. Public safety is also one of those concerns we need to worry about when we're looking at portable classrooms. While in my portable classroom, I had gang members looking for a student, wanting to jump them, walk into my classroom. They didn't go through proper security because I was open to the public. There are security, safety issues when we come to fire safety. They do not have sprinklers in them. They have only one fire extinguisher in them. And so those are things that we need to worry about. Also, my father, the fire marshal, said I had to say that. We needed to make sure that our students are able to escape a portable building safely. And if you did have a fire in a portable building, that could be limited. The majority of the classrooms do not have restrooms. That means that students are leaving the portable building to go to the restroom. How many countless minutes have been lost due to them having to leave the classroom and walk into a building to come back, and then occasionally, depending on your students, they may decide to go walk somewhere else. The last personal anecdote I'd like to leave you with is I want to imagine driving to work in 15-degree weather, walking into your portable, and it's below 50. It took 3 hours for my portable to get to 70 degrees. Now, luckily, my students were coming and going, so they didn't have to suffer that. But I think it's time for us to start putting our teachers and our students first and building facilities that are safe, they're secure, they're comfortable to sit in, and that also promotes learning. And so those are things that I would like for us to keep in mind when we do that. That permanent facilities for our students should be something that is a priority. So thank you very much. That's why I support.
Thank you for being here today. Appreciate you driving down. Members, questions? All right, thank you so much for being here today.
No.
Okay, is there anybody else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill, or the committee substitute for House Bill 1773? Now public testimony is now closed. We'll call on Representative Middleton to close on this bill. This time the chair does withdraw the committee substitute for House Bill 1773. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. This bill prioritizes classroom facilities for our students. I ask for your favorable consideration of the bill, and with that, I close.
Okay. Any questions? All right, House Bill 1773 will now be left pending at this time. You got another bill. You can sit right there. I did? I thought you were hoofing at me because I did that. I thought you were hoofing at me. All right. The chair lays out House Bill 3134 and recognizes Representative Middleton to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I now lay out House Bill 3134. And what this bill is a public school busing fix. So there's a problem that I have identified, and basically the issue is one school district can prohibit another school district's transportation system, so usually buses, from entering into their jurisdiction and picking up children. And this is a real impact in my district. So there are kids in Winnie Stoll, which is in East Chambers ISD, that go to High Island ISD. That's a neighboring school district about 18 miles south of Winnie Stoll. And there was an Attorney General opinion in 2017 that affirmed this problem and said no, Highland ISD buses could not enter into Winnie Stoll to pick up children to go to school. And unfortunately, the parents had to go cross county lines to go meet the Highland buses, and it wasn't very safe. You know, it's a bad situation that we've got. And what this bill does is it says, look, a school district is welcome to send their buses anywhere they want if they so choose. And the children leave for various reasons. That's a question I've got. It's usually bullying. And this just allows a district to send their buses to go get them at their home or some other designated location like a church parking lot or something like that. So this bill changes our statute to allow for that and overturns the 2017 Attorney General opinion. And at the end of the day, it makes our children have a safer commute to school and allows them to continue in an easier way to get to where they go to school every day. So with that, I will yield for questions and reserve the right to close.
Questions? Go ahead, Representative Van Deaver.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my mind around how this might work. So these students reside in one district. Their parents pay taxes to that district, but they choose to attend a neighboring district. And so this bill would allow the neighboring district then to send a bus into the district to basically run a bus route within the neighboring school district.
Right. Correct.
So aren't we duplicating services there where we have two districts running the same bus route, basically?
Well, it's to serve the children that are going to the neighboring school district. I mean, yes, we are, but the parents, for whatever reason, and there are a lot of different reasons, have decided to go to the neighboring school district, and this just allows them an easier way to get their kids to school.
And I get that, and I certainly support those parents' right to make that decision, but it just seems to me that we're providing them the educational opportunities in one district, and now we're asking another school district to. I don't know. Maybe we can talk about this, and you can help me get my mind around how this might work. It just seems to me that we're going to be running. I mean, you could have 4 or 5 different neighboring districts all running routes in a district, and I the confusion it might cause to an elementary student not knowing which bus to board, or just the duplication of services, the cost of doing those, just seems that there might be some problems there, and maybe you can help me.
I think there was and I'm going to bring TE up here in a second. There was something we heard in the commission meeting. There was a problem that the commissioner had with this issue, and which is one of the reasons that we ended up making a recommendation to go to mileage reimbursement from a linear density, because linear density doesn't allow you. Mileage actually opens this up. I'm wondering if this will even be needed as on a go-forward basis. But I'm going to have TEA come up here because I remember hearing something about this in the commission.
Right.
And it was a problem. And I'm assuming that, and we've got a couple school districts people that will come testify for this. I'm assuming this is that whatever school district is asking for this had already gotten permission to have those kids, correct?
It's permissive, yes. So
no. What I'm saying is they went to the school district and those kids want to go, because you can do, kind of an inter-district or an outer-district transfer. That's allowable as long as the school board allows you to do that.
You mean that?
I got superintendents there that are shaking their heads, so I'm guessing they're the ones that know the answer to that question.
So the interlocal agreement, I guess, is what you're referring to, because that's in the statute now. So
right.
It basically says the school districts can enter into an interlocal agreement, but that doesn't always happen, and that was the genesis of the Attorney General opinion in 2017, where Jonesboro ISD was entering into Gainesville ISD's jurisdiction, and they requested an AG opinion. Can we do this? And they said, no, you can't do that without an interlocal agreement.
You're talking about just the busing? You're talking about going to get the kids?
Busing. So typically it's a centralized pickup point. At least that's what we saw in Winnie Stowe, where they would pick up the kids in a church parking lot. So they weren't really running a route. It was more of a centralized pickup to get the kids 18 miles south to school. So I don't know about other districts how they handle that, but that's how we handle it.
Okay. All right. We'll give you the right to close.
Thank you.
Who's my TEA savant over there? Are we looking for him right now? Is it you, Leo?
Oh, thank you.
apparently whoever's supposed to be in here is not, so. There's Hunter.
Good morning, Leo Lopez, TEA, Chief School Finance Officer.
All right, so what's the deal?
I believe in April, the commissioner put out to the administrator address letter granting a statewide waiver related to the Attorney General's opinion that was referenced earlier, giving the legislature a chance to address it just because there was a widespread practice of these students being transferred across district lines, and he didn't want, I believe, it's my understanding, he did not want to disrupt their academic year with a change.
So the school district A, which is now getting the kids, wants to go get the kids. School district B, where the kids are coming from, say, no, you can't come into our district to go pick up the kids, even though they're going to school there.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yes.
And it have to do with linear density or the way that the reimbursement is done, or it had nothing to do with that?
No, I don't think so, because we don't pay for mileage outside of the district boundaries. So under current practice, or even under this bill, at least my interpretation of it would be that this wouldn't change the funding aspect. I think it was more just about the attendance associated with the students, with the funding.
That's what I recalled, because I remember Morath talking to us about this. So.
I can confirm and then provide
get
any
back to us,
additional
okay.
letters. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is that right? Okay, good. All right, there's some witnesses. Matt Dossie, Superintendent, Jonesboro ISD, testifying for the bill. We're going to find out. No, we're going to find out.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
All the committee members. Obviously, we're in favor of this bill.
Tell
We were
us-
at the
tell us who you are,
Matt
who you
Dossie,
represent, who you
Superintendent,
represent.
Jonesboro ISD. Obviously, we were at the center of the Attorney General's ruling in 2017. It was with Gatesville ISD, not the Gainesville, but the situation and address the question you asked about, is there, we don't charge or we don't get reimbursement on mileage outside of our district as it is right now. And the biggest argument that any superintendent in the state of Texas will argue is that we already have school choice. There's no need for vouchers and things of that nature because we already have school choice. Being able to run your bus into a neighboring school district to pick up the kids already enrolled in your school district, this is a non-discriminatory means of school choice. As it stands right now, if you cannot run those buses into neighboring school districts, the low socioeconomic children, their parents can't afford to take them back and forth to school districts. It creates a non-discriminatory means of school choice in our state, which we already have that opportunity to do. Commissioner Morath, I think he sees the validity in being able to do this, and I don't want to speak for him personally, but I think it is a necessary thing for us to be able to do. These kids, we're not recruiting these kids, and the way we do it typically right now is we have one spot where the parents bring the kids to one spot. We do not run a bus route throughout the district to create confusion and things of that nature. So there's one spot where we pick up. But I am in favor of this bill, and I think what you'll find is there are hundreds of school districts all over the state, because I've talked to those superintendents who have, are in support of this because they do this. There are some school districts, smaller ones, 80% of their student body is transfer students. Without the transfer students, the school district would cease to be. So,
which is a whole nother issue.
Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
We have too many districts in the state of Texas, but that's a different piece of legislation. Matt, let me ask you something. So you're getting kids from where?
Well, we have transfer students from districts all over.
How big is your school district?
We're about 325 students, pre-K through 12.
And where are you at? Where are you located?
Jonesboro, right in Central Texas, in between Hamilton and Gatesville, on Highway 36.
And is it a large geographical area? Is it that's the reason you're getting kids in, or help me explain it to me?
We're about 175 square miles.
Okay.
Our district
So it's
is fairly decent size.
And so you're getting kids that maybe would go to your district because it's closer for them to come to your district
Some
than
of
it
them,
is?
yes, sir. I'll tell you the biggest issue is, one size does not fit all. And so some children will flourish in smaller school districts where you have a smaller class size, you have more opportunity for one-on-one teaching. We talked about dyslexia and things like that. Some students just tend to do well in smaller schools where they will fail or fall through the cracks in a larger school. A lot of our students who have transferred out, that's exactly what you hear a lot from their parents is that.
And you have a relationship with this other district that allows you to have those kids, right?
Well, that was the whole issue. We did not have an interlocal agreement set up with Gatesville to run a bus into their district.
Well, but you're getting the kids. The
kids were coming out enrolling in our district. The fact of the matter for our situation, Highway 30, statistically speaking, school bus travel is the safest means of transportation on the roads in the last 40 years in our nation. Less fatalities, less crashes in school bus travel. We have a 2-lane highway that goes from Gatesville to Jonesboro. With the number of transfer students we had coming out from Gatesville, it was unsafe really to pick those children up on the highway where we were meeting right at our district line. So we look for a safer means of travel for our students. Again, these students, they came to us to sign into our school. We didn't run into a district and recruit them. They came out, signed their children in, and then.
How are they signing? I'm just confused on that. Are they because it's.
Well, if my children, my personal children, that attend Jonesboro ISD, if they chose to go to the Gatesville ISD, they could unenroll in Jonesboro as long as they meet the transfer criteria set up by the local school board at Gatesville ISD. They could enroll at the Gatesville ISD. So there's no, there's that, and that happens all over the state of Texas. That's not common to Jonesboro or Gatesville.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Travis Grubbs, High Island ISD, testifying for the bill.
Hello, Chairman and committee members. I am Travis Grubbs. I'm the superintendent of High Island ISD. It's a small district in southeast Texas, and I want to thank Representative Middleton for proposing House Bill 3134, and I'll speak in favor of it. There were several points that I had that y'all have kind of covered just now, but I'll focus on one point, and it's student safety. We have 50% of our students that are transfer students in our district. And out of those 50%, 3/4 of those kids, when they write down the reason for transfer, has to do with student safety. They've been bullied in another district, and they are trying to come to a smaller district where they feel like they might have a chance to fit in. And so I had a lot wrote out for anti-school choice stuff and things like that, but the other part of this big equation is student safety. I think we all want kids to go to schools that they feel safe at. And regardless of what it is, we're a unique situation. We're located on the peninsula, so some of our transfers also come from Galveston ISD. Those parents have their kids come to our school because, if not, they have to ride a ferry across the peninsula to the island in order to go to Ball High School. So there's several reasons that we get kids, and safety ends up being the overlying factor of all of those kids who transfer to us. And like I said, whether it's peer-to-peer or whether it's the other side of the peninsula where they're not wanting to ride a ferry, not many of us would want to put our kids on a ferry every day and have them ride home every day on a ferry. And so that's why we receive the kids we receive. And like I said, it's about 50% of our kids are transfers. To comment on the interlocal, our district was all the way back with Hurricane Ike about 10 years ago, whenever there was kind of a gentleman's agreement. With the new Attorney General ruling, one of our districts that we do get transfers from came to us and said, you know, we no longer want you to run a route. We don't run a route. We run one spot, just like the last superintendent talked about. We run to one central location to pick up to not create confusion for the smaller kids. But this is, you know, and above the safety situation, this does get into a socioeconomic status as far as the parents, whether they can provide transportation for their kids, whether both parents work and they're not available to bring their kids to a school district. So there's many factors that go into the transfers that we receive. And, you know, we're a small district, and without our transfers, we would no longer be in place.
I appreciate that. That's a great segue, which is not about transportation, but you know, one of the things we discussed during our finance commission is why do we have so many school districts in the state of Texas? And I know you're not in a position to talk about this today, but I'm just trying to understand it. If we're so close to Galveston, you know, what's the incentive to do it? We've heard that over and over. It's like, well, we got to get kids from the other districts, and otherwise we don't exist. And it's like, why are we not? You know, why aren't these districts getting together and working through that and creating one system that's better for everybody?
Well, for our kids, I mean, we're located on the peninsula and they're located on the island, so it's literally a ferry ride. I mean, that sounds good, except for when storms are coming through. You know, there's certain times that you wouldn't want your kid riding on the ferry.
No, I understand that. I'm not suggesting that you're going to be part of, you know, but
yes,
you know, it's one system, which,
yes,
you know,
sir.
we eliminate overhead and things of that nature. Is that, you guys ever talked about that at all?
Well,
or
not
merging
really.
Galveston or no?
Not really, because we receive kids from other districts that are struggling and come into our smaller district and excel, and we've seen that repeatedly in our district. So we look at the results of the students and their academic performance, and it's beneficial to some students to be in a smaller setting.
Okay. Yes, Representative Bandy.
Thank you. Just real quickly. So you guys, there's no funding available for you to run a bus into a neighboring district?
No, sir.
So basically, just thinking from strictly a financial point of view, you guys, you're willing to take on the expense of running the bus in order to collect the ADA, basically?
I mean, yes, sir. I mean, it's more than just the funding. It's also school choice, where these kids are choosing to go to a school that, whatever they're leaving for, you know, many reasons, but yes, sir.
But I mean,
that's what it boils down to. I mean, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so these students are coming to a central pickup point. If the parents are not able to transport them, how do they get to that point?
I mean, if the parents can't transport them to that point, then they can't get there. What happens is sometimes they will pick each other up and bring another kid with them, but that's outside, you know, that's their choice as parents.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Tellerico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Grubbs, I just wanted to build off of our chairman's question about whether or not, you know, the need for two different districts. And you said they do better in a small setting. Do you mean a smaller classroom setting or a smaller district setting? I'm trying to understand how the size of a district would impact a child's experience in a classroom.
Exactly. I mean, smaller classroom setting. I mean, our classrooms are obviously not 30, 35 kids, 25 kids in a classroom. They're smaller, so the more individualized instruction, you know, there's a lot of literature out there that supports that students are more successful in those environments.
And you can't have that small classroom size in a combined district?
Well, I mean, you could, but you're going to have to increase personnel and a lot of other things in order to achieve that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Representative.
Thank you. Is there a reason you can't obtain the interlocal agreement?
You know, it comes down to the other district agreeing with you or not. It shouldn't be that way, if you want to know the truth, but sometimes other districts don't always see the benefit of their students transferring to your district, even though they might run a bus into your district as well. It's one of those things where, you know, it's interesting sometimes.
So when you're having this conversation with the neighboring district, and they just say no, there's no way to work it out interlocally?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. just this is more of a comment for the committee, but I appreciate the superintendent being here. But this goes back to the same thing. It's you know, we're going through this process of funding education as we go forward, and we're hearing things that, you know, concern me. People are like, we want to stay small because our class sizes are smaller, but you got to pay us more so that our class sizes will go more, which, you know, it's a problem. You know, I mean, I know we're not fixing that today, but I'm throwing that out there, and you know, we're going to these different arguments, but it's creating a huge impact on our system right now. Just FYI. So, and it's the same thing I talked about. I'm not really worried about the rural situation. It's more of our suburban areas where we got all these school districts that are connected to each other, and everybody wants to be small, and we start stealing kids from each other. You know. So I'm not sure that while we're making some changes to the small and mid-size adjustment, this is the exact reason why we're not loading this thing up into the front end of this deal, because it's incentivizing, it's hurting other districts along the way. So, but we'll talk about it as we go forward. So, all right. Anybody else wish to testify on for or against House Bill 3134? If not, we'll call on Representative Middleton and close on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I ask for your favorable consideration for House Bill 3134, and with that, I close.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, House Bill 3134 will be left pending. The chair now lays out House Bill 2778 and recognizes Chairman King to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to hear this bill today. So I represent a school district called Utopia Independent School District. Their area is over 4 counties. It's right in the corner of 4 different counties. And so years ago, when they were required to make an election on a common date, then unified elections, well, then they were required to divide up the cost of the election amongst all the entities. And so what happened was that Utopia Independent School District ended up paying a large portion of the election cost in one of the counties in particular. So in the 83rd legislative session, I worked with the former Utopia Independent School District, John Walsh, to pass HB 1871, which added a subsection to the Education Code to reduce the cost of school board elections for certain small multi-county school districts based on county population. The population in Medina County has continued to grow aggressively, and so what House Bill 2778 does is simply change the population bracket enough to make sure that that bill that this committee passed back in the 83rd legislative session still continues to have the intended effect, which was to require that the school districts pay their proportionate share of the election cost and not just divided it up according by the number. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Sounds like a simple bill, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I'm a simple man.
That's not true. You just play one on TV. All right, we'll give you a chance to close. You do have a witness, Jesse Milam, Superintendent, Utopia ISD, and self-testifying for the bill. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is Jesse Milam, and I am the Superintendent of Utopia ISD. I tell everybody it's not perfect, but it is Utopia. Utopia ISD is located in Uvalde, Medina, Bandera, and Real counties. Our school district is the largest employer in our community. We have approximately 300 people. Our school has an enrollment of 230 students as of right before spring break. 40% of the students that attend Utopia ISD do so, and they are transfer students. They are transferred from Uvalde and Sabinal ISDs with which we have interlocal agreements. We want to share our world and our little bit of utopia to the greatest extent possible with everyone we can. Last November, our school district held a school board election, and the election estimated cost was approximately $15,700. The original bill for Medina County alone was $9,000. Uvalde County has yet to submit a bill to us. In Utopia, a teacher's aide with 2 years of experience makes approximately $22,000 a year. With the cost of holding a school election being more than half the salary of the teacher's aide for 1 year, Utopia ISD is asking for legislative help. Utopia ISD would like to be only accountable for the election cost of the number of voters in each county. In Medina County last November, we had 14 people vote. If you take that $9,000 and break it down, that's approximately $642 per person. It is highly unfair for our district to be expected to pay a bill of over $9,000 to hold a simple school board election. Former Superintendent Mr. John Waltz previously worked with Representative King to draft a legislation based on the county population. Although the population in Medina County has continued to grow, it has not changed much in Utopia, Texas. We have more deer than we have students. Paying excessive election costs such as these could possibly deter constituents from running in future elections to save the district costs incurred by having an election. As the superintendent of Utopia ISD, I only want what is best for my students, my staff, my community, and my stakeholders. I thank you for your time today, and I support Texas Rural Public Schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, questions? I'm just making sure. I'm looking at the bill. It goes from $46,100 to $55,000. So I'm assuming this was done to help some other school district along the way, and you didn't fit within the population. Is that what it was?
According to I believe the 2010 census, Medina County was under that population, but it has since grown and has now exceeded that. So.
And so, who would, if you hold the election, who's going to pay the other piece of this?
So we pay each one of the 4 counties. In Real County, we pay a flat rate of $700. Bandera County, we paid $6,000. In Medina, Mr. Lupe Torres, I had to chat with him a couple of times, and we finally got our bill down to like $2,300, but that took us some time. So. And
so you're going into you cross over 4 different counties.
Yes, sir.
And so when they have an election in May or whenever it is, right? They're holding a municipal election. What if they don't have a municipal election? Then what happens? Meaning if they have a city council and nobody runs for city council, but you have a school board and they got to hold the election for them, then how does that work?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm wondering if somebody from TEA knows. We had I'm just thinking about this. We had a situation in I live in a bigger area, but Humboldt ISD had school board elections, and now we go through the county. We go through Harris County, and last time our election cost was $50,000. This last election for 2 board seats is $190,000. It's insane.
It's a lot.
But you see what I'm saying? So if they're having a municipal election for city council or some other reason,
right,
and they don't nobody runs or there's no election, so they don't have anything.
I don't believe we have any costs that are incurred. I believe it's only when we have, we don't have a municipality. It's just Utopia.
No, right.
So.
Yeah, I get that. It's same point, though. There's no municipality here either. So if there's no joint election, you're not sharing those costs with that.
I believe that's
with
correct.
That city. So do you then absorb all those costs?
No, I don't believe we do.
All right. Is there somebody over there that knows? Probably not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You betcha. Thank you. Huh? Anybody here or no? Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. We'll figure out that answer, and I'm going to get Representative King back up here, and we'll go from there. Is there anybody else wish to testify on, for, or against House Bill 2778? If not, public testimony is now closed, and I'll call on Chairman King to close on his bill. Before you do that, I do have a question for you, though. You understand what my question was?
I think so.
Okay. So if they're partnering with the city, right, what my interpretation is that you operate in 4 different counties for this particular district, right?
Yes.
They cross over 4 different counties. And so if the municipality is having an election, or you're doing it on a unified election date, right, which would be May, I'm assuming they have their elections in May.
Last one was in November, I believe.
November, okay. So joint elections, whatever it is. If the city doesn't have anything on the ballot, I mean, if there's nothing else on the ballot, or the county doesn't have anything else, I'm wondering, it would be unfair to say to the county, you got to pay, this cost if they're not doing it, but if they're overcharging it. So I'm just trying to understand that piece of it.
I understand your question, and not that it affects your question, but just for clarification purposes, this particular school district, I don't believe the district, there are no incorporated cities within this district at all, but there are 4 counties. And so what was happening was that there's just a little piece of it in Medina County, and they would have 14 people vote in this last election. And in the past years, before we passed that legislation in '83, well, Medina County would divide up the cost of their election. For example, if it involved, the county and there was 4 school districts, they just divided up according to, if there was 5 entities involved in it, well, they'd take the total cost and divide it 5 ways. And so Utopia Independent School District. Now, then they'd start negotiating, and it was a negotiation process every time. And so when we passed this bill in the 83rd, we said that you only had to pay for your proportion. So those 14 people that voted, or maybe even I don't know if they do it by the number of voters or the number of registered voters that are eligible voters, but so they do that percentage cost. The county went ahead, they agreed to do that, even though there is a scenario that you're talking about could come about. Theoretically, if nobody in the county ran and there were no opposition, but you might have that kind of issue. But I believe you still have to have your elections. You can't cancel a county election.
No.
So,
unless nobody runs, but depending on what's on there.
I'm not sure you can cancel a county election even if nobody runs. You can cancel city and school board elections.
I'm not an elections person. I don't know.
I mean, if nobody's challenged them.
Yeah, if nobody challenges them, you're not going to have. If nobody challenges them, there's no election.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there.
It's a fine question, Mr. Chairman. I think that's something we need to find out.
Yeah, and so you changed this in the 83rd to the 46-1, but now you just want to move to the 55.
Yes, sir. Right? And the drafter believes that will be the correct bracket for the time being. No doubt it'll have to change again at some point in the future.
Does this impact anything other than this county, or is there any other counties?
To the best of our knowledge, it affects only the Utopia Independent School District.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. I close.
All right, thank you. House Bill 2778 will be left pending at this time. Lambert. We're rolling. Chair lays out House Bill 1597 and recognizes Representative Lambert to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to lay out House Bill 1597 before you today. This issue was identified by the Governor's Committee to support the military during the interim period, and federally, the Department of Defense has identified this issue as well and supports state efforts to address establishing residency for our military families. This bill allows permanent change of station orders to be used as proof of residency, provided those orders show a military member is being transferred to an area within the anticipated attendance zone. The student would still have to show traditional proof of residency documents within 10 days of arriving in the district's attendance zone, and this bill helps military families and only applies to active duty military members in establishing residency for their dependents. We did discover a small drafting error, and so there will be a committee substitute that we'll bring forward, Mr. Chairman, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would reserve the right to close.
Members, any questions for Mr. Lambert? All right, we will give you the right to close, but I think you can sit right there for the time being. Show Mr. Dutton here. Good morning, sir. All right. Is there anybody wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1597? If not, public testimony is now closed. We'll call on Representative Lambert to close on his bill.
I close, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, House Bill 1597 will be left pending. Mr. Bell. All right. At this time, the chair lays out House Bill 1632 and recognizes Representative Bell to explain his bill. How many bills you laid out?
It's my third.
All right. How'd they go?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Huberty and fellow committee members. Today I'll be laying out House Bill 1632. As we strive to provide all students exemplary education, we must identify all students at risk of dropping out of school in Texas. These students must have the additional support they need to see that they graduate and are college, career, and military ready. The Texas Education Code currently provides that students meeting certain criteria are eligible for compensatory, intensive, and accelerated instruction. House Bill 1632 specifically adds students with dyslexia. Additionally, it adds students who have been enrolled in 2 or more schools in a year, students with 10 or more absences, and students who are educationally disadvantaged to this category. The students we are proposing include are similarly disadvantaged to those currently in the classification. These children will greatly benefit from the additional instruction and resources. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for your consideration. And with that, I'll let the witnesses testify and respectfully reserve the right to close.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Just make sure I'm clear on this. It's not just so if you're dyslexic, you're asking for them to get comp ed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then it's a variety of different things that are inclusive of this. 10 or more absences. I'm reading that right?
Correct. 2 or more schools to be attended in 1 year. 10 or more absences. Correct. And then we're changing the language, educationally disadvantaged to this category, which is a cleanup.
Any idea what this would cost? It's saying no.
It has no fiscal note.
How is that possible? You don't know the answer. But
I don't know the answer.
I'm going to bring Leo over
sir.
here to try to explain that to me because that doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So we'll give you the right to close. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez. This, by the way, for members of the public, this will be the last bill before we go to the floor. So if you're waiting on something else, you may leave until we're done. Hello.
Monica Martinez, Texas Education Agency.
So I read the bill. Explain to me how there's no fiscal note.
So there is a distinction between the students who are identified as at risk for purposes of accelerated instruction and the students who would generate the comp ed funding. So they're 2 separate pieces of statute. This would amend the section that would require these students to receive the accelerated instruction, but there are no changes to the portion of the statute that would generate the funding.
But if he's increasing the amount of people, I'm trying to figure this out. If he's increasing the amount of people, why is there not any cost associated with that?
So the students who generate the compensatory education funding are students who are classified as educationally disadvantaged. There's a whole different set of students that would be required to be served with that funding. So it's not the same list of students who generate the funding that are required to be served.
Go ahead, Representative.
So that means you'd have less per student to do the comp ed.
So that's why the fiscal note indicates that school districts would either need to restructure the way they provide accelerated instruction, or they would have to identify additional alternate funding to provide those services.
So theoretically, this would be less money per student then?
That is possible.
Okay. But I think his intent is to provide more services for students, isn't it? Well, that's a problem.
So it's, I believe
How do you fix it?
I believe it's Chapter 42 that determines how the funding is generated. And currently, students get the compensatory education funding for the students who are identified as educationally disadvantaged, which is the free or reduced lunch. The students who would actually be served under this section include other students who might not be part of the educationally disadvantaged category.
I'm going to encourage Representative Bell in your office to get together to figure out what he's trying to do, because I don't think what he's trying to do is actually what this bill is doing is not exactly what he's trying to do.
This and another bill that you heard had the same issue, and we had several conversations to make sure that we were interpreting it accurately.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Eduardo Ramos, Chief Operating Officer, TASBO, and Pflugerville ISD, testifying for the bill.
Good morning. My name is Ed Ramos. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Pflugerville ISD.
Mr. Ramos, may I
Yes.
stop you? You signed up as Eduardo. Can you make sure
Yes.
you tell us that, please?
Gotcha. My name is Eduardo Ramos. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Pflugerville ISD, a district of 26,000 students. I have 23 years in school finance experience, and I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 1632. Specifically, this bill allows much-needed flexibility for school districts. It expands the criteria that identifies at-risk students from 13 to 17 students. And so what that does is it expands the list of students that are eligible for comp ed funding. And so this allows school districts the much needed flexibility to concentrate our dollars on students that really need the most help. Currently, we have a school in Pflugerville that's about 80% mobile, which means many of our students reside in apartment complexes, and so that is one of our more challenging campuses. The bill specifically identifies one of the criteria in students that are mobile and move throughout the district, and so as an example, this type of change would allow us to concentrate funding on those students, in addition to other struggling students such as dyslexic students, educationally disadvantaged students, students who have been absent more than 10 days. Those students, for whatever reason, require, or for whatever reason that they're absent, require additional funding and really promoting those students to make sure that they are successful in our school district. And so, again, just as a summary, we are in favor of this bill because it expands the opportunities for school districts to target the students that are at most need.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Questions? Thank you. Vicki Rabb-Wiggins testifying for herself, testifying for the bill.
Good morning, Chairman Huberty and committee members. My name is Vicki Rabb-Wiggins. I'm a 29-year veteran of our Texas Public Schools, currently teaching in Mesquite ISD, and I teach a group of these at-risk students, the dyslexic kiddos. And for the past 17 years, I've been teaching the MTA dyslexia curriculum to our dyslexic kids, which is what Representative Keith Bell has dubbed this bill the Margaret Taylor Smith bill. She's the author of the dyslexia curriculum called MTA, my MTA Rock shirt here. And I believe my idea might be changing now based on the funding, whether we get the funding or not, but I was under the impression that this bill would give more funding for our dyslexia department if we included these kids in this at-risk category. So I believe that if House Bill 1632 is passed and the dyslexic students are included, then this designation would open up other avenues of funding for dyslexia and make it possible for those dyslexic students to have better access to the resources allocated in Section 29.081 of the TEC. Teaching dyslexia is not just a job to me, it's my passion. My dedication to dyslexia advocacy began with my own son, who was not identified dyslexic until 5th grade, which is not necessarily too late, but it could have been done a lot earlier. He went through all 7 kits of the MTA dyslexia curriculum and is now, he graduated with his master's degree and his principal certification and is a high school teacher and varsity football coach. So had it not been for me pushing for him to be tested for dyslexia and then identified and served, his story could have been very different, and he could have been one of these kiddos we were talking about at risk for dropping out of school. We need more trained teachers for dyslexia because we're doing a better job of identifying the 1 out of 5 students who are dyslexic, but if we identify them, then we need more teachers to serve them because they need to be in small group sizes for that intervention. It kind of defeats the purpose if you have 22 kids in a small group doing dyslexia therapy with them. And so in order for this to be successful, we need more trained teachers. So I am in support of House Bill 1632 and pray for the funding to have that pass. Thanks for your opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate you being here. Any questions? All right, thank you. Shay Adams, Chief Financial Officer, Texas Association of School Business Officials, and self-testifying for the bill. Morning.
Chairman Huberty and committee. My name is Shay Adams. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Lovejoy ISD, and also here representing the Texas Association of School Business Officials in support of House Bill 1632. I'll hit the highlight.
Shay, let me stop you for a second. You're just registered with the Texas Association of School Business Officials testifying. You work for Lovejoy, so just want to make sure we're clear on that, right?
Okay.
Okay, great.
In 2017, and I'll just hit the highlights and provide you my written testimony. But in 2017, Lovejoy ISD received $65,560 in comp ed funding. We spent $540,000 on accelerated education services, so we're already spending more than we received to help students who are at risk. However, we believe the current rules related to the school districts can spend their money, how the school districts can spend their money on comp ed, are not well aligned with the best practices for serving students. Currently, most of the indicators in Texas list criteria that determine at-risk students require a student to fail before becoming eligible for services. To be considered at risk, a student must meet one of a multitude of criteria, and just to hit a few of those, that they were not advanced from one grade level to the next, that a secondary student did not maintain an average equivalent to 70 or above, that they did not perform satisfactorily on an assessment instrument, that a primary student did not perform satisfactorily on a readiness test, that a student is pregnant or has been placed in an alternative education program, that they've been expelled, or they're currently on parole or probation, and if they are in English limited proficiency, if they're homeless or residing in a residential placement. All of these things are happening from a failure standpoint before they qualify for services from a comp ed, and we want to recognize all of our struggling students, not just those who have failed. We think that the rules should encourage the early identification and intervention for students who may struggle academically by adding students with dyslexia, students who are low income, and students who have either high mobility rates or chronic absenteeism to the categories of the students that districts can designate at risk. House Bill 1632 would encourage school districts to intervene earlier in the student's educational career, and they would help us to better ensure student success and prevent academic struggle rather than addressing it after it has already occurred. So we are really appreciative of you considering this bill. We think that it expands who we can serve and really becomes more inclusive of the funds that we're receiving for compensatory ed, but we're able to serve more students and include them in those activities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? All right. Christine Brohal? Chief Operations Texas for Special Education Forum, testifying neutrally on the bill, but we also have you testifying. Is she here? Is she here? I don't see her. Okay. We got a little issue though. She's testifying for and on the bill, so she only registered to testify. Did she register to testify on the bill? Yeah, so she registered not testifying for the bill, and she registered to testify on the bill. Huh. That's a problem. I think what we're going to do is we don't have her permission to change. She's not here. She registered for and to testify on the bill, and for the bill not testify. So nothing we can do. They're not here. Let's do this. We're going to show her not testifying, but on the bill, and then we'll straighten it out. No, it's not two different people. It's just screwed up. So, well, she's not here, so we don't know what her position is. So we can go do not testify on the bill. All right. Is there anybody that's wishing to testify on, for, and against House Bill 1632? If not, public testimony is now closed. We'll call on Representative Bell to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. It is my intent to see these students do get the support they need to succeed. and that to add the flexibility to the districts to provide the necessary compensatory instruction for these at-risk kids.
I don't think it's doing what you think it's doing.
Okay, and I
Problem.
will.
We need to get with TEA and figure it out, because I think your intent was to get additional resources, not less resources.
Right.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Additional resources, yes, sir.
All right, so
Okay.
we'll just have to
And I'll get with.
figure out what you're supposed to be doing, because it's not working the way it's supposed to be working, correct? Because you should have a fiscal note.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr.
right.
Chairman. And with that, I close.
All right, at this time, House Bill 1632 will be left pending. Okay, at this time, the committee needs to recess for the House floor session. We'll reconvene upon, you want to do final German or reading referral? We'll reconvene upon reading and referral if permission is granted, otherwise upon final adjournment. If permission is granted. So, members, are there any matters we need to discuss before we recess? Okay. Thank you, members and guests. If there's no objection, the committee will stand recessed until final adjournment or recess of the House or during reading and referral bill if permission is granted. The chair hears no objection. The committee is now recessed.